All right, with that is that I'm excited to introduce our presenter tonight. Is that I don't know that there's anybody that probably comes to any of these workshops with more experience than Zane Mackey. He grew up in Wyoming. He's been super engaged in the show ring aspect of it from a kid when he was showing himself all the way to now that he's a coach and helps kids in his career path. And so that's really a super excited that we get the opportunity to have him share his knowledge with us. He also serves as the assistant livestock judging coach at EWC. He judges quite a few livestock shows across the country, both nationally and locally. Raises some club lambs himself, and so and works with goat kids as well. So he has a lot of experience in both the sheep and goat, well, and pigs too, across the board. So I'd say that it's probably not anybody more well-rounded with him. And so I'm super thankful and appreciative that he graciously agreed to share his knowledge with you guys and talk about goat health. As we go along, if you guys have questions, please know we want this to be interactive and we want you to walk away with your questions answered. So at any point you can unmute yourself and ask your questions, or as I said earlier, you can put them in the chat box and I'll monitor that and ask them as we go along as well. At the end, as you go along, if you have questions that maybe didn't get answered, we will have a question and answer session at the end where you can also ask questions related there. So with that, I will turn it over to him and he can maybe add his introduction.
Well, thanks, Dawn. Quite the introduction. With that, so we can just get started. I'm going to see if I can't get this to work. Oh, no. Okay, that wasn't what I wanted to do. Here we go. Okay. Is that working? Can everybody see the slideshow?
We are good, Zane. Thanks.
Perfect. All right. So just an overview of kind of what we're going to go over. Go over some like normal ranges of things that you can notice in your livestock. Some things that you can notice is there something wrong. Just some signs and symptoms. And then some common diseases and ways to prevent those and treat those that you face throughout the jackpot season and county and state fairs, taking those goats out and certainly intermingling them with so many other people's different livestock and of that nature. And then with that, at the end, hopefully you guys have some questions and I can answer those to the best of my ability. So with that, some normal ranges. The temperature for normal range of temperature for your goats be about 101.5 to about 103.5. The amount of respirations, that means every time they inhale and then exhale, that's one respiration. So with that, they should have about 12 to 15 breaths per minute. Their heart rate should be about 70 to 80 beats per minute. So just some normal ranges in case as we go along, they'll come into play a little bit. Signs that something's wrong, some droopy ears. I understand that boar goats and things have ears that droop all the time, but with that, there's some other signs that can come along. If your goat's acting lethargic and doesn't really want to get up and just kind of hangs out at the back of the pen, one that maybe just lays in the corner, some that are finicky eaters. With that, you know, it comes to time. Sometimes, yeah, my goat may just not clean up his feed this morning, and that could be due to the fact that maybe we fed a little late or something like that. But a goat that just significantly goes off feed a few times, that's definitely a sign something may be going wrong in his gut. Some loose stool if they're loose. Ones that are just kind of losing weight, that can certainly affect them on not wanting to eat as much with that. Fever, if you notice some of the other symptoms, it'd be certainly nice to take their temperature to know if they're running a fever. Certainly a cough. If they have a cough, if they're in a dusty area or something like that, a cough can be a sign of many things that are wrong. Or if they're biting and chewing at their sides or chewing at their leg hair, which definitely is a detriment to the show ring because we worked so hard for that added look and bone. So some of those could be just signs that something's wrong. So with that, probably the most common disease that we'll see throughout the show season is ringworm or show lamb fungus. So with that, that's just something that to us, it's a fungal infection. It can affect all domestic animals and humans. Can be located anywhere on the goat's body. It's just a round patch of hair surrounded by a ring of skin. If it's left untreated, it gets bigger and bigger. We commonly find that on a lot of our show lambs and goats throughout our barn throughout the summer, sometimes up under their jawline, and then maybe just right on their back, in the middle of their back or somewhere on their side. You can treat that by just pulling that hair out of the circle where it's at. One way to prevent it, you can use antifungal soap as much as you can. When you do treat it, recommend that you wear gloves so you don't contract the ringworm. Clip or remove the hair around the area where the fungus is at. What we like to do in our barn is we pull the fungus off in that circle to clear it, to expose it. And so you'll just have a bare patch, a bare circle on that goat's hide. With that, we take some Clorox and spray in there that first night. And then from there, you can use fungus cream, just some straight up tough actin tenactin you can get from Walmart. Or one that we like is just fluid film, which is a lanolin-based oil product that you can get at like your local John Deere or Frank Implement or something like that. And that'll certainly add the look and skin back to it. And we found that that helps promote hair growth back into it, and you don't get those dead black spots on their body that certainly take away from their eye appeal. Moving from there, Soremouth is another common thing. It's a lot like chicken pox. It's an infection of scabs or blisters on the lips, nose, udder, and teats, and sometimes on the hoof and skin of their lower leg. It's very contagious and susceptible to humans. You can wear gloves when you treat it or mess with those goats. One thing I would do is just probably isolate that one and confine it. Disinfect everything you have in your barn. Certainly use hand sanitizer and wash your hands regularly. It can be contagious into humans, and with that, it's just some open sores on your hands. That certainly aren't the most comfortable thing in the world. But the recommended thing I say to recommend to treat it is just kind of let it run its course. You can try and treat it with a topical ointment and things like that, but within about a week, it should just go away on its own. Certainly, once you get it, you'll always get it. It's just like chicken pox. However, once that goat or that wether or anything like that gets it, they certainly won't get it again. So it's just one that's very highly susceptible, very contagious to humans and other animals in your barn. Some internal parasites can certainly lead to some problems, be some damage to the gastrointestinal tract, reduced growth rates. Symptoms, they could be the loss of appetite, with your goat just simply going off feed for a few days, their weight loss, or they're certainly acting lethargic. With that, just worm them regularly. When you bring your goat home to start your project, if you haven't done that yet this year, I would recommend to do it. We use Vibrazin, which is a white wormer. It's a liquid drench wormer. It's extremely easy to administer to those goats. We just draw about a cc to their body weight and just give it to them. It's very simple. You can just go the traditional route and give them a shot of Ivamec, keeping those internal parasites, because I used to have an old guy tell us, you're not feeding the animals, you're feeding the bugs. And so to keep those worms and things out of those wethers and does and things of that nature certainly helps without the season throughout the summer. There's a picture of what some of the worms would look like. My round worm has been cut off in my picture, but that's okay. Some external parasites, be lice, mites, keds. Some symptoms of that, your goats would certainly be chewing on their leg hair or biting at their hides, which, as we all know, we try so hard to grow that leg hair throughout the summer. We rinse that leg hair and blow it out and do as much as we can to fit it and make them look as cool as we can. But with that, just a way to keep that under control is try and keep your pen clean, know where your livestock are going and where they're being pinned with. And then just to prevent that, every time you go to a jackpot or a livestock show or something like that, disinfect everything, use an antifungal, anti-lice shampoo or something like that at the fairgrounds before you leave, and then when you get home, do it again, and then just revive and condition their skin to keep their handle as well as you can. From there, just some foot care. Trim their foot regularly, trim their feet regularly. With that, you can not only definitely shape the way that your goat walks when they go away and come at you. One thing judges certainly look for is how opened up they are at their chest and how square and genuine they are off both ends of their skeleton. And so with that, maybe you have a goat that pulls their hock in a little bit or maybe bows on their rear leg. You can certainly trim their feet and kind of shape those to help them walk. Not only that, and some wet areas and some warm areas. If it's a dirty pen and you certainly haven't been up on cleaning those pens and the best at that, you can get foot rot, which is a disease like this. That's a picture and an example of that. With that, just make sure you clean their pens, trim their feet, definitely look at them. You can use, there's some foot rot cleaners and things of that nature and disinfectants you can get for their feet. We recommend those. Some respiratory problems, coughing, which we found excessive in the sheep if you're in a dusty area or something like that. I think it leads as most to anything to a prolapse. When they're coughing a lot and they just certainly don't act themselves. Not only that, transporting your livestock to jackpot shows, and we know in Wyoming the weather can change. It can snow in July or it can be 120 degrees. With that, the change of weather can certainly have an effect on their respiratory system. Transporting those livestock, just stress, not drenching and watering them as we travel, things of that nature. Poor air quality is huge. If your barn smells ammonia-y or your pens just haven't been cleaned regularly or you have just an excessive amount of dust, that can certainly lead to coughing, which can come into pneumonia. We'd recommend to just clean your pens regularly, keep your animals in as limited amount of dust as possible. And then you can just, if you do get a pneumonia or a coughing spell, certainly just treat it with an antibiotic. You can visit with your local veterinarian on what type of antibiotic they feel is best to treat your specific coughing problem. Just some daily checks that I think you guys can keep up on. Just always make sure you keep their water bucket and their feed pans clean. One thing that I found, a lot of feeders that we work with, sometimes they think, oh yeah, I dump the water out and fill it back up. Well, with that, sometimes we just want to take our hand and you can reach inside that water bucket and you can feel the film on the inside. So what we do about once a week, we take a rag and some dishwater and soap. We just get in there and wash it just like we're doing normal dishes once a week to keep those feed pans and those water buckets as clean as possible. So that way we can just always monitor what's going in those animals and keep their guts as right as we can. Rinse their legs and condition their hides. Not only does that help in the show ring throughout the summer with their look and their feel and their handle, but throughout that, you can always keep a manage on what their skin looks like. Do I have ringworm? And do I have lice or something of that nature? Because the biggest thing is just prevention. Lastly, for us, the biggest thing I think is keep your pens clean. Try and change those. Keep your smell down. Keep the ammonia down. You keep your pens clean and keep it well bedded. I think you can reduce the amount of dust. You can always know what's in those pens. And I think that can all lead to the biggest thing. To just throughout the whole summer, prevention. And I think that's the best way to just keep those goats healthy and on the right track throughout the summer for you and your certainly your 4-H project. That would be the end of the slideshow.
Zane, there's a question in the chat box that asks about wormers. Do you have other types of wormers that you can use on goats?
I believe you can. I'm screwed up the computer here. Is it all black?
Yeah, you're okay. Yes, so if you just hit the red stop sharing, is that what you wanted or you want to bring your PowerPoint?
Yeah, I was trying to do that. I have no idea how to do that at the moment. That's okay.
There's like a little up, right by that green thing, there's like a little up thing, I think that, or maybe at the top. Sometimes it's the top. If you scroll your cursor to the top, it should be red. It's okay.
Oh, there it is.
There you go. Perfect. Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, there's definitely different wormers you can use. A Safeguard, they make one specifically for goats, which comes in a pill form. The Vazen, the one that we use, which is the drench, you can get Safeguard in a paste. You can get Sidectin, which is an oral drench as well. There's definitely multiple wormers that you can use. You can just go to Valley Vet, and there's 30 different types on there that you can find to specifically help out your problem.
Perfect. So there's another question in there about exercise. Can you just maybe briefly touch on what they should be doing exercise for their goats?
Yeah. For us, we don't exercise much until late in the summer. With that, we kind of try to, because we jackpot so hard early in the year, and we're usually at a livestock show every single weekend. And so for us, that stress and that management on those goats or those sheep is certainly enough to definitely stress them out. We suck back about 2% every time we go and haul. So when you get throughout the summer and you get later in the year, some exercise programs that we do in our barn, we definitely take them out. We rinse legs. We put them on the stand, blow legs out, and then we try to get everything to hold a brace and be able to show and hold that stance for about a minute, and then we work up to about 10, 15 minutes by the time our target show is, which is usually a state fair or something of that nature, because not only does it get that goat in shape, it gets you in shape. From there, you can run those goats. I wouldn't recommend running them a lot and just running them long distances and things of that nature. Because if you've ever looked at a distance runner in comparison to a sprinter, a distance runner is a lot longer and taller and skinnier. If you look at a sprinter, they're a lot shorter and stockier. So what we like to do is just sprint those goats or sprint those wethers short distances, and that'll certainly help to their ability. We just kind of get them till they're panting or their tongue's hanging out, and then we call it quits. And we only do that about every other day.
Okay, perfect. So there's another follow-up question to Wormer. Do you inject, pour on, or drench the ivermectin to treat lice and mites? How many cc's per pound?
To be honest, we have never done that. We just use the white wormer for our wormer, and then from there to treat the lice and things. We have Weaver and like Sullivan's. They make the medicated lice shampoo. It comes in like the purple bottle. We use that to treat the lice and mites. We've never really had much of a problem with it, so I'm pretty sure you could use it. I think it says it can treat those as well. But with that, see, we just had one instance last year where we ran into a livestock show that somebody else had lice, and so we just tried to prevent it as well as we could with soap and things of that nature.
Okay, perfect. There's another question that was sent to me that says, oh wait, let's ask this one. This is Wormer 2. Oh, how much Wormer do you give them on the kind you use?
It's all dependent on their body weight. And so like it's 3 mils per 100 pounds. And so it all just comes down to their body weight. You can do the math off of whatever your goat weighs. We're about 65, 70 pounds, somewhere around there, 80 pounds, it all depends. And so you got a 50-pound goat, you're going to give them 1.5 cc's. So.
Perfect. That's probably dependent on, too, if they're going to use a different kind. It should say
exactly.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. There's another one that was sent to me that said, how often do you rinse legs and do you put anything in them? So I think they're probably asking like conditioner or something like that.
Yeah. We wash and rinse legs every day. So say on a typical week, Monday through Friday. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, we would wash with soap and rinse with water. Put them on the stand. We put some Revive in it, or sheep and goat conditioner you get from Weaver or something of that nature. We comb it out, blow it in again, and we do that Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Tuesday, Thursday, we rinse it out and then just blow them every single day. We are doing something with legs, but we only typically wash every other day and then rinse on the days off.
Okay, perfect. All right, so that's all the questions in the chat box. Does anybody else have other questions or topics that maybe you have questions about or follow up on? We have a really quiet group tonight. So, oh, there's another one. What do you wash with again? Like, what are you washing those legs with? I assume they're talking about legs just because it was a follow-up question. Maybe not, but what would you wash with?
We wash like typical daily care. We just use soft soap that you can get at Walmart. We usually use the honey kind because I like the way it smells. We found that it keeps their skin nice, and we'll use that on their bodies and things of that nature. It keeps their skin pretty hydrated. It doesn't dry their skin out like that. If you get Sullivan's Bright Lights, that purple stuff, nothing against Sullivan's, but I found that typically dries their skin a little bit more. Just like if you're using the medicated lice shampoo and things of that nature, you always got to remember to make sure we recondition that skin and things like that, because we'll dry it out and dry that hair out and maybe take away from their handle.
Perfect. That's a great question. Okay, so I know this wasn't your topic, but what grain do you feed goats, if any? And we did a nutrition one a few weeks ago, but if you want to just touch upon that, you're welcome to.
Okay, so we actually, we feed goats a little bit different. We feed typical to each goat, right? So each goat's specifically fed a little different. We feed Mormon Showtech. My brother's girlfriend is a Mormon Showtech dealer, and so we kind of got hooked on Mormon Showtech. With that, so we feed the amino goat. There's a texturized, we feed that, and then we mix that 50-50 with Show Rights, the Glen Martin special or whatever it's called. We feed that, we mix that 50-50 for some goats, and then another couple goats we feed the amino goat pelleted from Showtech. Just because goats are such finicky eaters and very picky, we found each one just kind of typically, each goat has a different type of body shape or a different body type that we need to try and fix the way we can, and so that's how we typically change. So.
Okay, perfect. There's a couple more questions. How do you treat follicularitis, and maybe can you say what the difference between that and fungus is?
Yeah, so that would be more like a staph infection, if I'm right. So ringworm and that, we just bleach. We basically, if you get it, we treat it all the same way. I mean, we pull it off with pliers and open up those sores, and then spray them with bleach. The biggest thing for that is just the prevention. We try to use as much, the brand of soap that we use is Hibiclens. It's what they use to clean surgical things and like that nature. You can buy it at Walmart. It's a little green bottle. We use that as much as we possibly can.
Okay, perfect. There's another question that says, do you use electrolytes at the start of show or at the end?
So we have, we start using an electrolyte drench about the full week prior to the show that we're going to. And then we drench Dine, and then we have our electrolyte drench that we use. So we would switch to Dine drenching in the morning, electrolyte drenching in the evening. And then when we get to the show, typically, say it's a Saturday, Sunday jackpot, we would start drenching them Friday the whole time we haul, Saturday the day of the show, Sunday the day of the show, and then Monday when we get home. And then if we have another show that weekend, we would continue to keep using it.
Could you share maybe how much Dine you use? They didn't ask that, but maybe that might be helpful for them.
Yeah, so we actually mix our Dine drench. We take the Dine and put it in like a Sunny D jug. We empty one of those. So we put 64 ounces of Dine and 24 ounces of water. And then with that, that way we know exactly how much Dine's going into them. And then it's a lot easier to get that Dine out of your drench gun. And so then we start everything at about 10 cc's. And then for the goats, we probably only get up to 20 cc's by the time we hit our target show.
And do you do that twice a day, Zane, or once a day?
Just once a day.
Okay. All right, those are great questions, guys. Anybody else have questions for Zane? All right. You sure can unmute yourself. You do. There comes another one. What is the purpose of the drench?
Okay. Each drench has a different purpose. For us, the Dine drench just adds a little bit more bloom, and with us jackpotting and stressing them out so much, we try to keep their handle and their look as much as we can. As many of us know, bloomy ones always do a little bit better in the spring. And I think with that Dine drench, we can make things just a little bit fatter faster. We can add that bloom and that cover to them. But with that, we continue that throughout the summer, because towards the end of the year, we start getting a little bit staler and a little bit more wrung out. We can try and keep that handle together. And then the electrolyte drench, We specifically use that one to add as much hydration back into them as possible, because as many people will tell you, you can have one that's big square loined and you can change their handle completely with keeping them just hydrated. That'll keep their loin edge in them, keep their handle right, especially throughout a show or the hot summer month of July and early into August here in Wyoming when we get into state fair and late county fairs.
Okay, just to double check, Zane, the question is 64 ounces of dine to 24 ounces of water?
Yep, we take 64 ounces of dine, mix that in the jug, then put 24 ounces of water in, and then just shake the heck out of it.
Okay. Do you store that in the fridge after you make it, or it can sit on the counter until it's all gone?
Oh, I can sit it. I've never put it in the fridge. I just leave it out in the barn. The sheep and goats would probably enjoy it more if it was cold. I don't know.
Perfect.
The dine is super, super sweet. So once they get used to the drench gun, you don't even really have to grab their head. They just drink it right out of the drench gun. So
perfect. All right. Anybody else?
One thing with that dine drench, though, I would start low, like 5-10 cc's, and if you adjust your feed like every week when you take weights and things like that and try and change your rations, I'd be pretty careful upping that amount of dine drench because they can get pretty loose on you sometimes. We like to keep their stool pretty soft. If you notice, everything's usually pelleted. We like to be just a little bit solid to where it's not, they're not loose, but they're not pelleted. It just kind of comes out together. That's about the consistency we like to have them at because that means we're pushing them about as hard as we can push them.
If you get one that gets a loose stool, what do you treat that with?
I would just take them back off the drench for about 2 days and then just start them back over from the beginning, like at 5 cc's. Within about 48 hours, you'll know. So if you started drenching tomorrow morning, you would know by Friday night if that's upset their gut.
All right, perfect. Okay, that's great questions, great discussion. Anybody else have questions for Zane as we kind of wrap this up? Okay. We'll give you just another minute to go in there. So we're giving the last minute for anybody to come up with their questions. Is that if you've been on the previous workshops we've done, we do have some door prizes for tonight. So if you want to get out your piece of paper and pencil, everybody's putting in their last questions. If there's anybody that has the last question, we'll share a screen here in a minute and we'll show you how to get your name in the hat for some door prizes for tonight. So I will say before we go to that is that if you guys come up with other questions, feel free to shoot them to me via email. You should have my email address as far as that had the link in this, and then we can connect you to Zane, and I'm sure that he's willing to answer questions or help you. I'm kind of speaking out, but I bet he'd be happy to answer questions or help you if you guys have specific questions as you go along. There was one final question that came in here, Zane, is about pink eye. How do you recommend treating pink eye?
We just use Vetricin. That's what it's called, I guess. It's just a little spray bottle. We get it straight from the vet clinic, or I believe you can probably get it at Baumgar's or Murdoch's. So left me. So you can get it from those guys, and then we just treat that regularly in there. It usually clears up pretty quickly.
Yeah, just remember, guys, that is one too that's a little bit contagious. So just be careful when you're going to handle those as far as treating and things like that. Just wash your hands. Nothing to be scared of, but just something to be smart and cautious about. So absolutely.
One thing I recommend, well, I mean, a little weird, but we keep like a big gallon jug of hand sanitizer in the show box and then one in the barn. Because, I mean, you just never know. I mean, even shaking other people's hands, you don't know if they've washed them. So we try to stay as clean as we possibly can.
Perfect. Those are great questions. All right. Well, with that, I sure appreciate you, Zane, for doing this and sharing your knowledge and helping our kids out. So we had a smaller group tonight, which is great. Lots of opportunity for you guys to ask questions and interact, and you're awful quiet, but thanks so much for getting on and helping us. And I'm going to just share my screen here. Let me